get moving forward here. I know everyone's interested in hearing what their items might be worth. So we'll start off with this one, and I'll go to a couple pictures. So this bin was described as a coal bin, and it may have held coal. They also, similar ones were used in country stores and held tea. So they're used for tea bins, and it's sometimes in country stores. And this one's been painted. So it wasn't this way initially. It looks like later paint. And he has a nice side view, but it's kind of a nice folk art painting on it. The back. And you can get, this gives you some perspective. You can see a person's legs in there. These are pretty good size, probably about 2 feet high. And there's another view, but the painting's kind of nice on it. Sometimes if it were an advertising piece for tea, it would be a little more valuable if you had the original tea graphics on it. But this is still a nice decorative piece. And I think in this condition, it would be about $100. And I should have mentioned, so as I give it a little bit about appraisals, so you may have, those of you who watch the Antique Roadshow, maybe hear different prices. It could be an auction price. It could be insurance price when they offer an appraisal. I'll use those, and sometimes I may say this is what it might sell for in an antique shop to kind of a reasonable price in a shop. So they may vary a little, maybe a little different. Insurance appraisal is typically the highest because that's a replacement value, and we're to do a formal appraisal, I typically see everything in person. I'm able to flip things over, look them over better, and we have to run comps on them to use PAP standards, which are the appraisal standards. And we're not going to do that in this. This is more just to give you a general idea. So if you did need insurance appraisal, you could get one from either me or another appraiser. But this is just, these appraisals are more to give you a general idea. And so with that being said, this would be about $100 in a shop. Okay, and this is a steel engraving. It's hand colored. It's a scene in Paris. There's some writing that was on it, maybe the artist's signature. And it says it's a steel etching. And so steel etchings, or steel engravings were later. First, they were made with wood blocks, but you could only make so many engravings with a wood block before the wood started to get wear. And so wood blocks only allowed you so many printings. Then they switched to copper, and copper was stronger, it lasted longer, and then eventually used steel. And with the steel, there was very little wear, and you could make thousands of these engravings or etchings. And this one looks to be hand colored. It's a scene in Paris, and it says Paris at Christmas time. And I did a little research. That's one thing I'm able to do where I can't do at a typical appraisal event. So I was able to do a little homework on some of these pieces. And I found the only other one I could find from Paris, and there were multiple ones, were of Notre Dame. And those were selling for about $25. So I think this maybe a little bit more on this because it's a little more unusual. So maybe 35, 40. And here's a pair of lamps, and they were just, if we go a little further, you can see that it's by L&F Moreau, and it's M-O-R-E-A-U, who was a French sculptor, and he is best known for bronze cast figures. And if we go a little further, you can see it's collection Francais, made in USA. And these were made by a company, JB Hirsch. So they're not original Moreaus. If you had one of those, you'd be in multiple thousands of dollars. He was a very popular artist, and a lot of his pieces were reproduced. So these lamps were as well. And we're going to go back again just to part where the, so you can see, I looked up some comps on these and didn't find a lot with those glass shades on them. So that's kind of nice to see them with the original shades. These aren't, these are 20th century somewhere copies, but they're still pretty desirable. I found some selling online for the pair that was closest to this sold for $300. And here's a couple of Currier Knives prints. And Currier Knives, I just again noted a few things. They produced some of the most popular wall hangings of the 19th century. And Currier set up the print shop in 1834 and was joined by Ives in 1952, and Ives became a partner in 1857. So antiques markets changed a lot. I've been doing this over 30 years, and there just doesn't, in many areas, there just isn't the interest there used to be, unfortunately. And so Currier Knives have slipped a little bit, but the good news is that Civil War memorabilia is still very collectible. So there are collectors for Civil War era. And Currier Knives haven't, the value hasn't dropped completely, but they used to, I might have said 20 years ago that they might be 300 each, but now I looked them up, and I found 4 prints by Currier Knives that sold for 350. So that these being 2, you'd be at around 175. The only thing is, I think on one you could see a little bit of staining on the bottom, and so that'll make it drop a little bit. So maybe 125 or 150 for the pair on these. Next thing is a Joe DiMaggio baseball card, and it's by a company called Play Ball, which was made by, as you can see, it was made by Gum Inc. And it's a 1939 card. Baseball cards are an area that's remained very hot. There's some prices really haven't changed a lot on these. They're still very desirable. But as the person who sent it in noted, you can see there's some creasing on the card, and that makes a big difference. You can see actually going through the left side of his face, there's kind of a big crease. So with baseball cards, there are companies that do grading, and you can get them graded if you have a star and it's in very good condition, and it may be worthwhile, because the difference between a card that's made, they'll grade them 1 through 10, by the way. So a card that's 3 versus a 7 could be thousands of dollars. So it may be worth doing. This one, because of the crease, the value isn't going to, isn't top of the scale, but because I've seen other ones sell for 8,000 in that range, but they were maybe 8, 9 grade cards. This one would be a lot lower, but still think you'd be in the $400 range or so on that one. And here's a person described as a sea chest, ship's mate sea chest. And it says it was John Lewis Turney, and that the name is, there's also some initials. So take a look at that. You got the old iron hardware, so that all looks good. Natural wear you would see with it, and the paint on it too, I should have noted, looks to be original. It's got a, oh yeah, go back one more time. You can see the rope handle. That's something you'd expect to see as well. The design in the front, I have to be a little skeptical being being an antique auctioneer, and I've seen a lot of people try to uh, alter things a little bit. So I'd like to see that close up just to be sure that it's that's original to it. There's a chance that it may not be because it's another thing is I like to know if things have been passed down through the family. In this case, it was purchased at an antique shop, so you never know what could have happened along the way. Again, the inside looks good. You've got iron on top and natural wear. So on that, I found some comps for similar sea chests, and they were one sold for 250. 1960s hand painted and signed Catherine Hennick French provincial pedestal table, and it was their first married gift in 1962. And looked into Catherine Hennick a little and dug up some information. She and her husband, Ozias, ran a furniture factory in South Boston. Catherine was born in 1900 and died in 1993. And they emigrated from Romania and lived in Boston. And this piece, I found a similar one that sold for $225. As we go through it a little bit, you can see her signature there. So that's signed piece, and that was older appraisal. That was from 2003, and I have to note that the market does change a lot. So it's going with a 2003 appraisal. You typically adjust it downward a bit, but just to give you an idea of what they sold for in the past. And this one is a table in the 19th century, and it says it was likely fashioned from a ship's door. So we'll get some other views of this one. And the age again looks right. The painting on the bottom looks a little newer to me. So it looks like it may have been, they call it upcycling or repurposed, whereas some work was done on it. And so they made the ship's door into a nice little table. So it's a unique piece, and it certainly has eye appeal, and I'm sure someone would be interested. It's just the kind of thing you're not going to find any comps on because it's kind of a one of a kind piece. So I did look and try to find something kind of in the ballpark, and found some tavern tables that were in the $200-300 range, and I think this might also be in that range. And this one is a ironstone, and it's marked. It says Edwards President shape on the bottom. No, excellent when done. No chips or cracks. So again, after doing a little work, found that John Edwards and Company made china and earthenware in Longton and then Fenton in England. And the president shape stamp was used for just a short period of time. It was from 1873 to 1879, so we can get these dated pretty accurately. A bowl with a cover. This one you can see doesn't have one, sold for $50 fairly recently, and the teapot went for $70. And these are auction prices I'm giving you too, just so you know on so pretty much on everything, unless I tell you, I mention that my source is different. And this says that it's Wedgwood pieces, and they say 1775 and 1776. Excellent condition, no chips or cracks. And I'm going to assume that it's marked Wedgwood because all Wedgwood would be marked. And so these are unusual patterns. You usually don't see flowers on it. And often see it with cameo designs, and that's called jasperware. And so this looks to be a jasperware. But if it, so let's go with assume that it is Wedgwood, and I've seen similar pieces bring $100 each if they're fairly large. If that's a creamer and a sugar, it's going to be a lot smaller. So you're looking at maybe 75 for the pair. But if it doesn't have that Wedgwood mark, it's not Wedgwood, because the factory did mark everything. They were proud of their workmanship. So you can just double check that, whoever this belongs to. And here's an old butter churn. And so it's called a dash or a plunge type. And so it's probably from the late 1800s. And similar ones sell in the $200 range on that. This painting, I signed E.J. Condren, 1922. So if you have paintings at home, you can look up the artist and see. There are databases you can go to. Some of them may charge you. You can also go pick up Davenport's art guide, and you can find out what some paintings have sold for. And that's a really good source. I use that all the time before I got my signed up for a database online. But I looked up E.J. Condren, and there are some other Condrens, but no E.J. So looks like E.J. wasn't a listed artist, but it's kind of it has nice eye appeal. It's kind of folk art, primitive design on it. And I don't know the age. If you do have a painting, if you can flip it over and look at the back, you can usually tell by the amount of wear on it if it's the canvas. If it's still looking pretty bright, it's a pretty new one. But in this case, it's marked 1922, so that's just more of a tip. And the 1922 seems accurate, especially from the frame. And so it's just it's decorative, we'll say, because we don't have any information on the artist, but I think it has a nice look, and someone might ask $200 in an antique shop. And this vase is marked Eaton, hand-painted china. And so this is 20th century. And I've looked at comps on these, and they sell for around $2,500 for floral ones like this. And a person described this as flash glass, which looks to be, there's a lot of glass in the early 1900s. This looks a little later than that, but it was ruby flash glass was a type of glass that was used, and it was used in a lot of souvenirs pieces. So what they would do is take a piece of glass. A lot of times it was pressed glass in the early 1900s, and they put a coating of red on it or ruby, and then they would etch pieces out. So the underlying clear glass would show up after it was dipped in the ruby, and that's what looks like happened here with this glass. Looks like it was clear glass coated with that red color, and then etched to give it that nice pattern. And that's about $25 for that. If you do have any of the souvenir pieces, some can be pretty desirable. And if you have rarer ones from towns that didn't get a lot of tourists, if you have one from New York, probably not as valuable. But if you have one from Townsend, it's probably going to have a lot more local appeal and sell for more, be more valuable. There's some close-ups of the work. And clocks have dipped a bit over the years, but this one's kind of nice. Some things to look for are first to see what it's made of, and this looks like a wood case. A lot of times this color may be slate, but it's from the photograph it looks like it's wood, but it's pretty ornate. You can see the dial, and the detail went into that, and the workmanship on the side. And so that's a nice looking clock. And you can see there's a close up of the dial again. More close ups. And so it looks like there's no damage to it. It looks to be in nice condition. And here's some interesting information. A person noted that it was purchased in 1898, and talked about how it's saying on the hour, and it may gain speed. And it's made by Sessions Company, which we can see here, the Sessions Clock Company in Forestville, Connecticut. And most of the clocks that you see are going to be made by in Connecticut. Connecticut was a big clock making center, so a lot of the clocks from the 19th century were manufactured in Connecticut. Oops. So with this one, I did some comps, and again, prices have dipped a bit. So this one, I saw a similar one that brought it a little over $100. Here are some Eubank dolls from Hannibal, Missouri, and look them up. I didn't find these, which are Tom Sawyer and Becky Thatcher, but I found Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn in similar condition, and they brought $50. Dolls are, for the most part, I've also dipped a bit, and I should probably tell you some of the things afterwards that have increased in value, but these dolls have dropped a little bit. And okay, and here's some advertising fans, and just person shared that they were church fans from his or her dad's church, decorated with paintings on one side, advertisements on the reverse, probably mid-century, and the mid-century seems to be right on target. They seem to be from the 50s, so they have the graphics they aren't painted, but they are copies of paintings. There they are, pulled apart. And there's the advertisement on the back. One's from Panama City, Florida, another one from Shelby, Nebraska, and Geneseo, Illinois. I'm not sure on the pronunciation on that, but these for this era typically bring in about $10 each. But there could be something rarer. There might be somebody in maybe again Shelby, Nebraska, may not be a very place that produced a lot, many advertising pieces. Like again, like Boston or New York, you're going to find plenty of pieces from there. But a smaller town, it maybe have a little more value. But typically, $10 each on those. Here's some Red Wing pottery, and person says it's about 14 inches tall, and it was a gift from their grandma. And you can see the Red Wing marking. When you have things at home, you can do some of the research on your own. You can try to look up Red Wing and try to find similar pieces. This one has a nice drip glaze where the yellow meets with the green. Oops, and I'm gonna pass it, but so if again did a little background work on this, and Red Wing, first of all, was a Minnesota company, and it was founded in 1861. And similar pieces to this are in the $50 to $100 range. Here's Madame Alexander. It was a popular doll company in Alice in Wonderland. So there's, you can see the condition on it's very good. It says persons shared that it was owned by their grandma, purchased in Wichita, Kansas in 1939. And the price then was $4.95 plus 10 cents for tax. But again, you can see that I think they noted that there's an issue with one of the eyes, but overall, you can see the condition is very nice on that. And it also says that the wig is made of human hair and that their eye may have been repaired at one point. So then they've got the original tag, the condition on it's good. And I mentioned that dolls prices have dropped, but in this case, it's such a nice doll that the value I think is still going to be there, and the collectors are going to want this. I saw a similar one without a box that sold for $425 in 2018. And, in this case, I think it could bring 600 with the box now.
Wow. Here's
a German cup and saucer, and so three things that the market's weak on. They call it brown furniture. It's just not selling well. Glass and china, porcelain also, I should add. But unfortunately, this would have sold for much more before. Now in a shop, you might see it for $25, and that might even be a little on the high side. It's probably, it looks to be 100 years old, but they're just not buying many buyers, unfortunately. And here's the stand that it stood on. That's made by Ardalt in Japan, and that's later in the 20th century. I've seen them online for around $20. So next one, let me dig out some information on that, and it is some puzzles. And the person says they're stave puzzles. They're all complete in their original boxes, and they're interested to know if they have any value. So you can see it says Tropical Punch 2. I assume these are, they're all three are Tropical Punch. There's an article on stave puzzles. Made date 1999, made in Norwich, Vermont. So these were a little out of my wheelhouse, a little new for type of things I usually handle. So I had to do a little research on these, and is what I found out. That company was formed in 1974 by Steve Richardson and Dave Tibbetts. So I guess with Steve and Dave, they became Stave. And I saw that someone recently online had sold all three puzzles together, and they were $600. So things don't necessarily have to be old to be valuable. And in this case, these three puzzles are worth about $600. And with this one, it's a person picked these up in Grenwell, Labrador. It says Labrador Eskimo and his lady, and they picked them up. It says industrial sales room at St. Anthony, part of the Greenfell mission. Some other information: the material of the Dickey and Parker are Grenfell cloth, which is wind and water resistant, and the fur is real sealskin. They came with a small set of snowshoes purchased in 1939 in Labrador, and the original price for the man was $4 and the woman was $3.50. So did some research on these, and I know I said earlier that dolls don't have a lot of value, but it seems like folks have some of the better ones, the ones that do have more value. And I don't know who these are, but that looks like paper mache to me, and I'm going to assume it is. So if it isn't, you can let me know. But so I found some of the dolls from there were bringing $200, but some of the paper mache ones could be could actually be in the low thousands. you get conditions not perfect, but so but a rough estimate if those are paper mache is you're in the 1,000 range. And it has the little snowshoes with it, and they're the tags. Okay, so yeah, here I have to be the bearer of bad news about brown furniture. That's a beautiful cherry set, and if this were 20 years ago, I would say at an estate sale, they might ask $600-800 for it, but now the market has just fallen so much that a lot of people are just donating them.
Wow.
So, now in an estate sale, and someone might ask $300-400, and but unfortunately, there's an article that Forbes did called "Nobody Wants Your Parents' Stuff," and the problem is that there's so many people who are downsizing. There's so much material like this coming from decedent estates that the supply is through the roof and the demand is very small. A lot of people, especially younger people, don't like traditional furniture, and this doesn't have the appeal it once did. And so here we got Charlie McCarthy and Mortimer Snurd, and person notes that Charlie has a pull string that can open and close his mouth, and it's part of their fiance's grandmother's doll collection. So things change, and they kind of fall out of favor. When I started doing this, things like Roy Rogers lunchboxes, Hopalong Cassidy, all the Shirley Temple toys from that era were popular, but now younger collectors aren't going to know who those people are. So the market values on some of these have dropped a lot because people just aren't collecting that. They want to collect toys from their youth. So things like Transformers from the 90s are popular as opposed to Charlie McCarthy and Mortimer Snurd. But the condition on this is fantastic. Charlie really looks good. Still has the original button. And you can see there. And it's made by a company called F&B, which I'll talk a little bit more about. We have another F&B doll coming up later. So yeah, you can see again the condition is very, very good on these. And but again, because they've fallen out of favor a little bit, I found one. When it was a few years ago that a Charlie McCarthy sold for $350, and just recently Mortimer Snurd went in January went for $55. And here's another doll, and this one's in F&B. And so a little background on F&B Company. It was founded by Bernard Fleischer and Hugo Baum in New York during 1912. So the F and the B became F&B, and they just spelled it out EFFANBEE. And the company made nice dolls, but the doll market has dipped, and but it is nice that we just saw the original box, and that's going to make a big difference. So with the box, you're looking at maybe $50 to $100. And these are old-timer covered wagons, and I looked online for these again, did a little research, and it looked like they're miniatures, and I assume these are as well. The only ones I could find from were miniatures, and they were bringing in the $10 to $20 range. All right, furniture, here we go again. I got a I'll let you know the bad news. So this looks to be, doesn't look like a piece that's early enough to be something that a craftsman would have handcrafted. It looks like it's manufactured. And so $35 on that. And here we've got a watch, and let's look up the information that the person gave us on that. And it's a lady's pocket watch, belonged to my great grandmother who lived from 1851 to 1900 and immigrated to the U.S. from Sweden in 1872, and it's believed to be a wedding gift. And the script inside says cylinder. I'll do their English translation. 4 rubies movement, Swiss watch. So the rubies are our jewels. So the more, if you have a pocket watch at home, you want to see how many jewels there are. The more jewels in it, the more accurate it's going to be, especially a later watch. So you might see 17, 19, 21, 23. 23 would be the most accurate. There's other things you can do. If you look up the company, say it's a Waltham watch, you can find out the serial number, and you can look up the serial number and find the date. So if you have watches at home, you can research them. Other thing to look for is if it's made out of what the case is made out of. Gold would be the best, of course. A lot of times they were made out of gold. They were gold plated or made out of rolled gold, which is partial gold. It might be just a percentage of gold in it, and sometimes silver. So in this one, got some nice close-ups, and the inside of the back is nice to see, and you can see where it's quattro rubies. It's again 4 jewels. Oops. So I was going. So if it's silver, which I didn't see it as, then you're probably looking at around $100 for it. And otherwise, it would be a little less than that, maybe half. Here's interesting piece, and I guess it was a little hard to tell from the pictures. And let's see, get the person's description first of all. Seems to be from the 20s or 30s. Cartier block marking is also from that time, I believe. Maybe Art Deco era, and it says that Cartier does not do authentication or appraisals, so I'm not sure where else to go to get info. So there's some things that you can do on your own, and one is to see that you could bring it to a jeweler and find out the stone. Have them look at the stones, see what you've got for certainly look to be diamonds there, and get the pearl evaluated, and you can get a rough idea on the value from the jeweler. And I think you're right on target with the 20s to 30s. This does look to be an Art Deco piece. And here on the back, we've got some numbers, and with a watch, a Cartier watch, and again with pocket watches, you can look up those numbers and find out a lot of information, including the year that it was produced. So with this, I assume you could as well. And from the picture, it doesn't say here, but it looks like a pendant, and that's what I'm guessing it is. But if someone wants to correct me on that later, I'm happy to hear. But just from the pictures, that's what it looked like to me. But that will at least give you some idea. I think that number is going to be a big help to you, and as you do some research, and you can go to websites and find out that information. And also, again, bring it to a jeweler. You'll be able to find out total carat weight if we're looking to find out value along with that, with more information about it. Okay, I always like old advertising, and this is kind of interesting. Instead of getting your shoes in a shoe box, you get them in a shoe tin. And
Oh,
the things to look for, graphics look really good. You see a little bit of wear on the bottom, but for the most part, the condition is pretty nice, normal wear you'd expect inside. Some good graphics on the box. And let's see. So close up.
that's nice.
People like advertising, and it's always seems to sell pretty well. I found a number of these, and one in rougher condition sold for $25 in 2016, but I think this one would bring over that. You might be looking at 3 times that amount. And the Worcester Chemical Fire Pails, which is local to me, right outside of Worcester, is kind of interesting. So I looked it up, and they don't look to be very common. I only found one other one when I was looking through comps, and the other one was in much rougher shape. This one isn't perfect, but the other one was even worse condition, and even the one in rough condition brought $50 in 2012. So I think this is kind of scarce, and could maybe bring 200 to the right person. And this one is a tin, and let's take a look all the way through it. It's person notes that it's kidney shaped, and marking on it is, see the back, and it even has some kind of strap, and it's marked F.J. Boardman, MPS, pharmacist, Abigail. So it's UK, so something we typically don't see around here. So I'm not really sure what the pharmacists would have done with it, if they were dispensing things on the street, or what the reason was to carry a kidney-shaped tin around with a strap on it. But it's kind of interesting. It has a nice look to it. Couldn't find any direct comps, but I think you're probably at about $50 on that. That's a nice look. And so here's wine press, and it said it came from great grandfather from Calabria, Italy, and he came in 1902 to the U.S. with his brothers through Boston to Morristown, New Jersey, to Indiana, to Miners Hill, Pennsylvania, Carbondale, Pennsylvania. 1921 moved to New Jersey, so a lot of traveling in the U.S. It says it's at least 70 years old, and that they remember person's dad remembers it since he was alive, and probably around 100 years old. And they also know, which is kind of interesting, that the family's wine press is featured in another family's other wine press is featured in the Smithsonian's exhibit on foods in America. So I did look them up. Wanted to find out what wine presses sold for, but I wanted to try to find one that was from Italy, like I assume this is. The family immigrated in 1929, and they say it's over 100 years old, so that would mean that came from Italy as well. And so I found another one that's similar that sold for $325 in 2014. And I think the 100 years sounds about right from viewing the pictures. And this one's Beethoven Concerto, and it's signed on the interior by the conductor, Colin Davis. Let's see if we can see the signature. Yeah, you can see the signature up top. And so if you have signatures of somebody famous, you can get those authenticated. Sometimes it's worth to pay for it if it's somebody uh, whose autograph's really desirable. If you've got a George Washington or Babe Ruth, it may be worth having it authenticated, and then your value could be go up quite a bit. But I looked up Colin Davis. I found another record that he had autographed, and it sold for $25 recently. And this is a version of Paradise Lost, and I've got the date here somewhere. It says, I think it was 1850 on that. And 1835, Paradise Lost, and by Milton. So things to look for: condition on a book. If it has a nice leather binding and it's an older one, if it has good graphics in it, it's illustrated by a famous illustrator, it could be desirable. Main thing is if you have a first edition of the book, it could be very desirable. Even some more modern ones like Stephen King, some of his books are can be worth a lot of money. In this case, the book came out in 1669, so we're almost 200 years from the first edition, and you can see it. The condition's a little rough. So I'm thinking in a bookstore, though, someone might like a nice readable copy of it, and probably maybe at $25 for that. And person wasn't sure the name on this one, but it looked like Ceballos to me, Ceballos. And so I looked up a couple, I found 4 Ceballos in my database, and none seemed to match the style of painting. So I think it's an unlisted artist, but this one has a nice look to it. I think nice decorative piece, and I'm thinking it just as $100 is a nice decorative painting. And here's a Hummel, apple tree boy. And fortunately, Hummel's market has dipped also. 20 years ago, they were bringing much more money. So they might sell for 2 or 3, might bring $100 at auction. Now, sometimes we don't sell them at all, but I see them in auctions and it's 10 to bring $100. Some things to look for though with a Hummel. The markings on the bottom. So this is first they came out with a crown mark, and then they had just a full B without that V on it. And this is a little later mark. Other things you can see, it's got a little. They call that crazing, the cracking that you see on there. So it does affect the value, but again, they have dropped a bit. And I saw recent sales results for $80 for a pair. So this one would be about 40. All right, so this is Furstenberg, China. Got a better view of the mark there, and it said it's a pretty extensive set, service for 8. And again, China is one of the things where the market's dipped quite a bit. But so I looked up some recent sales of Furstenberg, and large sets like that were bringing from $100 to $250. And this, I think, is the last one. You got some decorative candlesticks, and they look to be more contemporary. I think they have a nice look, those. And I think maybe $25 for the pair of those.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, please chime in. I think some people are muted, but we could definitely unmute. Yeah, Lori, go ahead.
You were talking about advertising.
Yes.
So would it be safe to say advertising crates and boxes are kind of holding their value?
Yeah, they are, and it's more the advertising signs and tin pieces. If you have a big old Coca-Cola tin sign, that's going to be worth a lot more.
Yeah.
But the crates, they may have some value, especially depending on what they are and how old they are. If you have an old crate for Moxie from the 1920s, it's going to be more desirable than a more current milk crate.
It seems like I have a large collection because that's my kind of thing that I like. But it seems like I can never find prices or comparable items.
Oh, okay, yeah, and that's a good question. How do you find out what some of your things are worth? You know, if you want to do some of this research on your own. And one of the things that I use a lot is eBay past selling prices. So if you go on eBay, say that Hummel lamp, someone could ask $800 for it, and they're not even going to be in the ballpark, and that's the asking price. But if you look on sold items, there's a little button on the left, and you can see what things sold for you. So you can look up crates. You may not find something exactly what you have, but you can find something similar. If you really want to dig in deeper, there you can look on. There's a company called WorthPoint, and you can get a limited subscription for a short amount of time. Get on there and get all your gather up all your things, because I think for a day it might, I don't know the price, but you can get one for a day. So if you gather up everything you want to find out, you spend that day on there, and I think it'll be worth your while.
Okay.
Was WorthPoint the company that you did an interview with down south recently?
Yeah, they partnered with them to do that video on the States. So, yeah, they're a good company. There's other websites that you can use as well for art. I use one called Ask Art. So if you got a lot of paintings, you may want to sign up for that one. Could probably get a subscription for a short time.
Neat. Any other questions from people who are here today? We might be okay for now.
Oh, I was
Another one.
Oh, you got a few?
Go ahead. You go ahead.
Okay, we'll trade off. I was curious, what sort of trends you've seen over time, and what's valuable or what people find interesting, and what drove those trends.
Okay, so one thing is gold. Gold estate jewelry right now selling very well. Coins, gold and silver coins, and part of it is because the precious metals themselves are worth so much that that the coins and the items made from them, the jewelry, become valuable. Again, with collectibles, it's you do see some dipping as people age. I mentioned Hopalong Cassidy's kind of fallen out of favor, and could be the same with automobiles. 1930s cars may have dropped in value, but now the 60s and 70s cars are more desirable because there are still collectors, maybe in their 60s, who want ones from that era. But one of the biggest things I've seen is when I used to go to auctions 30 plus years ago, nice used furniture, like we saw that nice cherry furniture, and auctioneers used to bring that to auction halls all the time. And like I mentioned, that you might get $600 for that set, but fortunately that's all changed, and glassware, china dip, but collectibles are still good. The baseball cards, comic books. We recently had a pretty rough condition Hulk #1 comic book from the 60s that brought $4,500 even in that condition. So if you've got your any comic books tucked away, take a careful look through those.
Lori, did you have another question as well?
Yeah, I was just going to say, what if you do have collections of things like comic books, but you don't know? I have a collection of comic books. I have a collection of dolls from when I was young.
Yeah.
What do you do with them? Just sit on them? Is it worth it to get an appraisal? What do you do with the collections to make sure
I guess
that you're covered?
it depends. what your goal is. I guess, maybe you want to get an appraisal if you for insurance, especially some of these things turn out to be valuable if you've got some of those early, especially superhero comic books, 60s or earlier, or some other items. The other thing, if you're looking to get an estimate, if you're considering selling them, you can do that as well. So I guess it depends on your goal. You just want to know for your own interest, or
Yeah, just to know if some things are worth hanging on to, or if you should actually just sell it, or.
Okay, yeah, and that's a good question, but can be a little hard to predict because things change. You never know. There's some things you can kind of predict. I've been seeing comic books, baseball cards hold up their value for a long time, but then other things kind of, then again, the metal prices go up, and all of a sudden those are worth more. So things that, toys that were made in Japan in the 1960s, 50s, where tin toys were kind of considered junk when they first came out, but then they got really popular. And this is dating back a little ways, but when Japan's economy really heated up, there were a lot of Japanese buyers looking to buy back some of those toys that got sent over to America. Also, Chinese coins, stamps, the price has gone up as their economies improve. So it does kind of take a crystal ball to figure out what's going to be good in the future. But I guess the thing is, if you really like it, hang on to it. But if you're looking to get to see when might be the right time to sell, I think with some things like comic books, baseball cards, and might be as good a time as any to let them go. So, but it's just more of it's like picking a stock. It's kind of, there is some guessing or involved in it.
Okay, thank you.
I've got a quick question.
Sure.
What is your favorite item, or maybe just the item that's like blown you away the most during an appraisal?
Well, I got to work for the Antiques Roadshow for one time back, but the thing that I did get to appraise was a pair of Elliot Ness's credentials, and so they I tried to you pitch what you have to the producer, and so when I pitched it to the producer, Durgan Park Restaurant, the second oldest restaurant in Boston, when it closed down, and that was an exciting auction to do. It was, a lot of people had a lot of fond memories of that restaurant, and there was a lot of local interest in that, and all the local TV stations came in to check it out and interview us, and it was kind of fun too.
Yeah, I saw some articles about that auction. Wow. When did that open, the restaurant, originally? Do you know?
Yeah, oh geez, I'm drawing a blank, but it was the second oldest after the Oyster House. It was a couple hundred years old, and
Pretty good.
it's kind of unfortunate.
All right. I think that might be it for now, but if you guys have any questions later on, or if anyone who's watching this at a later date has questions, you can certainly reach Wayne at his website at centralmassauctions.com, or you can reach us at the Historical Society at Townsend Historical Society at yahoo.com if you have any questions. And just thank you again so much to Wayne for bringing all of his expertise and for sort of reinventing the wheel for how an event like this is possible to do in 2020. And thanks so much to all of you for joining us. That was really nice of you to go through all the technological hurdles that it took to reach the meeting finally. But thank you so much for spending the time with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you. Thank all of you as well.
Well, thank you, guys.
Thank you. Yeah. Let's see. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.